All right. So I think I've probably seen many of you, but my name is Kate Cudney, and I have been working with Christ Episcopal Church for quite a while now. We started this project, as some of you know, but in 2019. I am the owner of Hinge Studio, which is a small architecture firm, and we specialize in reuse, adaptive reuse, and other types of work in existing structures. So and this has been a really amazing project for us. This evening, I am going to present predominantly the things that we are proposing to modify within the sanctuary. At this time, we are at the end of the process of documenting all of the work that is going to happen at Christ Episcopal. So we are in the phase that we call construction documents, which basically means that we are doing all the drawings that the contractors will use to build the project. So part of what we've been asked to do is to present some of these things to you to get your feedback so that we can incorporate your thoughts into our final decisions. And then the next step after we finish the drawings will be to get bids from multiple contractors and then hopefully get ourselves rolling here. Shelley, do you want to say anything else before I jump into the presentation?
Just that we're doing this presentation, which makes the process a little slower and more expensive, because when the vestry got to the point of looking at items and structure of the sanctuary, we realized that it was not appropriate for us to make a unilateral decision about that space, because it is the heart of our collective experience. And together we decided that this was a place where it was worth it to slow down and uh, ask for everyone's input at this. There's other spaces, like the sacristy, we work with the altar guild, right? In the kitchen, we work with the coffee hour folks, but this is all of ours. And we want to make sure that all the way through this process, it feels like all of ours.
Exactly. So I am going to go ahead and work my way through the presentation this evening, and then I will open it up for questions. And then at a few different points, Shelley, I'll probably ask you to jump in and talk about some of the thought process behind the decisions of what's being presented. And then I know that you'll be given an opportunity to weigh in some form. So and Shelley can talk a little bit more about what they have planned for that. But in the meantime, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me 1 second to make that happen. This is a little bit of an unusual presentation situation for me because I'm working on a tiny little laptop that I only work on when I'm not at home. And so can everyone see my screen? I can't actually see you anymore. So if maybe someone can unmute themselves and let me know that you can see it.
I can see.
Great. Super. Okay, so you should be seeing a screen that I'm making larger now that says Christ Episcopal Church Congregation Presentation. And if anyone can't see it, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to get going. Okay, so this first slide is something I think we've had on pretty much every presentation we've done. It's basically just the, it's challenging for me to let people into the room in when I'm presenting. Let me see if I can figure that out. Hang on 1 second. So I just had to admit another person. So feel free to read through these, but these were the project goals that were set forward at the beginning of this project. So I always like to put them forward to remind all of us what we're focusing on doing, but I'm not going to take the time to read them. Okay, so you've also probably seen this slide before as well. So what we're looking at right here on the left side is the meeting agenda for the evening. And on the right side are two drawings. The orange is indicating the areas where we are modifying or doing work in the building. So as you can see on the left side, that's the existing condition. So you see your pews and you see the raised platforms here. So the drawing on the right side, for those of you who have seen our presentations before, shouldn't be too much of a surprise. It really hasn't changed much, but basically what you're seeing is an ADA ramp, an accessible wheelchair ramp from the exterior here, the existing narthex, and then the sanctuary with a new arrangement of furniture, which we will talk through along with some furniture choices. The restored organ is here on the bottom portion of the drawing, and we are adding, as most of you know, an ADA accessible bathroom here. We are reworking some of the robing area here to provide better storage. And then in order to make Wilson Hall work better for some of your social hours, we're putting in a more robust commercial kitchen and a new additional bathrooms, so that there will be 3 bathrooms, 3 toilets on this portion of the building. Okay, so the plan for this evening is to talk through the following items. We are making some changes to the entry narthex here, which I'll talk through. We're obviously changing the way you're going to be sitting in the space and the furniture, so I'd like to talk to you about that. We're introducing a new element that is the cross that will be located in a way that everyone can see it. Currently, I believe your cross is both a table mounted cross as well as the one that's in the window here. You can imagine that if you're sitting in these chairs, you wouldn't be able to see that. So we're introducing a new element. We are proposing some custom furniture and seating that we'll talk through. We are going to be changing the marble that is currently sitting up here on the far dais, raised up. We're also changing this east chancel, which is that same location. We'll be looking at what this new sanctuary restroom is going to look like. We'll be looking at proposed changes to lighting in the sanctuary, some ceiling options for the sanctuary, and then in general, just very briefly, I'll have a few 3D views of both the interior and the exterior so that you can see where we are with this. Okay, moving forward. So y'all should recognize this as the existing entrance and the narthex. As I believe you should know by now, we are closing off this stair. And in doing so, we will be having a change in what's happening in the flooring in here. We are also going to be repairing or possibly replacing these doors. As we know, they're very hard to open and get stuck. So we have 2 options being proposed that we are going to ask the contractor to provide prices for both. One would be to restore the existing doors and replace the hardware so that they are in working order. And then the second would be a cost to provide a new door. If we do go in the direction of the new door, the intention is stylistically for it to be very similar to this existing door. Okay. We are proposing to leave the lighting the same in the narthex. So here what you see is a computer rendering. So it's got a slightly wider angle view than we typically would see with our eyes. And it's a little bit simplified. So you see this wainscoting doesn't have the detail of the beadboard on it, but the intention is really just to show you mainly the changes that are going to be occurring in the flooring and also the door. So for the flooring, we're proposing two possible solutions. Both of them have been vetted for slip resistance, to make sure that they're not something that's going to cause anybody to slip on. One is this more ornate tile. It is a tile that is made out of concrete, with color integral to it. So as it wears over time, the color will never change. It's quite a durable surface. And the pattern size is approximately what you're seeing down here. This is basically four tiles put together. This small area right here of the darker color in the drawing is actually an area where there won't be tile, or what we're proposing is that there won't be a tile, but instead um, there will be a lowered floor area where there will be a recessed mat. So the mat material looks like this, and the intention of it is that it cleans off people's shoes as they come in. It's similar to the mat that you currently have that you've just kind of thrown there. The nice thing about having it recessed is it prevents a trip hazard, but it can be very easily removed to be shaken out. Um, and the bottom of it cleaned. So it is something that can be put down and then pulled back out, but it is recessed so that it's flush with the rest of the tile. And that detail would be the same whether we choose the more ornate tile that you see on the top or the simpler tile that you see on the bottom. This tile is much more similar to what you already have there. It's a slightly warmer color. I think what you have in there now is pretty gray. Um, and the warm tone was selected just to work with the wood. We think both of them are lovely, and would love your input on that when we're there. As far as the door, the only thing we're really changing here is currently, if you recall from the previous slide, the inside of that door is white. Kind of looks a little dingy right now, gets dirty easily. The outside of the door is this lovely color that matches what you all have painted the rest of the church. So the hope was to bring some of that color into this entry and have the door match so that one side of it isn't different than the other. All right, so next, this is the floor plan. The chairs can be moved. They are not permanently here. We'll go through what they could possibly look like in one of the future slides. And this is obviously just one of many seating arrangements. But one of the things we wanted to take a look at was really kind of how the flow of people would happen through the space as you enter, and how in particular that might work if you were coming up, say, for communion here in the center. Whether or not you have a round altar or a square altar is something that we can start to work through this evening and get your input. But essentially, the layout has been set out so that there is enough room for everyone to move through, and we're not having to climb over too many people to get into the seats. So you would enter obviously through the narthex, up the ramp through the narthex, or up the stairs through the narthex, and then into this area. Right now, we are proposing to keep the number of chairs at around 75. We believe that this will accommodate most of the volume that you have in the church from what we've talked about, which means that we would actually have a little bit of overflow area in this entry. Um, we haven't selected the furniture that's back here yet, but the idea is that we might have some nice chairs and maybe lower coffee tables where people can sit and talk before or after um, the service, or maybe if someone needs to nurse their baby or something like that, they can come back here and do that. Also, you'll see the mini grand piano that you have here. This round circle is the baptismal font that we'll talk about later. So you would come in, depending on where you wanted to sit, you would walk in either the side aisle or the center aisle, find your seat. And then when you are coming up for communion, for example, um, the folks in this end would exit one way or the other circle around to the center table. But this is very much designed in the round so that the presentation of the ceremony and the service would happen here in the center. This heart is for Shelley, where she might be standing. And you can see this funny, complicated element here to the south or to the bottom of the drawing is the restored organ. This element here is a potential location for a lectern, which again we'll talk through in a later slide. Back here, we've actually relocated the kids area to this back. So if the kids were coming up, they would come up this way, come out and into this back area. It's located close to the bathroom and kind of tucks them away, but they can still be involved in everything. This element here that you're seeing on the north is actually the modified marble element that currently sits in the east chancel. And there are small objects around it, and we will talk through this a little later, but those are the kneelers that we currently have at the kneeling rail. Just a few more things to point out. Again, this is the stair going down to Wilson Hall. So the little additional storage here to make up for the storage we're taking out, as well as here. We'll show you images of this bathroom. And then finally, over here, modified robing area and sacristy. Okay, so this next slide is showing a very simple cross that we are proposing would be hanging basically above the altar table here in the center. So it will be hanging from the apex of the intersection of the chancels and signify where the service is taking place. The proposal at this time, we went through quite a few different ideas, everything from an interesting sculpture to a more ornate cross elements, and ultimately through Shelley's direction, we settled on making a very, very simple move here. So a very minimal elegant cross form, quite large. It's about 5 feet tall from top to bottom. And right now we are still exploring a little bit what the finish of that element might be. And Shelley can talk through with you a little bit the significance of the cross element and why we're proposing to go in this direction. But one possibility is we might finish it with this charred wood look. So it's very dark. It actually has the texture of that burnt wood, and it's quite glossy. So something I should tell you is that we will have lights, shining down and aimed on this element, as well as aimed down here. They will be spotlights, so that will be illuminated. It won't have any internal illumination, however. The other possibilities are that we go with a simpler finish, such as a dark stain, maybe even black, or a whitewash stain. One of the things we've noticed as we've been doing these renderings, and part of the reason we're showing this to you in black and white, is that we're going to have to work closely to make sure that the cross doesn't blend in too much with the ceiling because it's so dark. Shelley, do you want to take a minute and just talk through the thoughts with the cross element this way? And actually, I think I might stop sharing as you do that so everyone can see you a little bit more, and then I'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, we went round and round and round and round and round about this. It is traditional to have a cross around above the altar, which we have not had at Christ Church. One part of the conversation was, what does a cross mean in a church? It's a symbol that feels very automatic and obvious, but not one that we spend a lot of time thinking about. And this process has made us think about every single element in the space. Um, I have a I have a personal thing about it where I just worry that if Jesus comes back and like starts visiting places where people worship him, he's gonna be like, why is the murder weapon here? Why does everybody feature this? Like, if your brother is killed with a machete, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get a necklace with a machete on it. You're like, really? That's not like with his name or something. It feels strange. But there is value in it, I think, in that it is a reminder of the cost of discipleship. If we are in this process truly, um, it's dangerous. And there are powers in this world, especially right now, that do not want us feeding hungry people and do not want us saving lives through the needle exchange. I just found out from actually that Idaho has just made, the state of Idaho has just made needle exchanges illegal. Um, People will die because of that decision. And so for us to say, no, we are going to diligently care for vulnerable people, there might be consequences. And the cross reminds us of that. So we started playing with the idea of the cross not inhabiting a triumphant state, right? Like trumpets are announcing it, but it occupies this sort of negative space, right? So that we remember what happened, and we remember what might happen to us if we continue to do this. Um, and that sort of in between negative space also allows us to look through it like it's a window, especially if it's dark, into the resurrection. So that is the like big artsy thoughtful explanation of how we got to a big black cross above the
Mhm,
altar.
mhm. Okay, thank you. Did you want to say anything else, Shelley? Okay. And we can open this up for discussion later once we get through everything, because I know probably people have some questions or thoughts about it. Let me just double check. I don't have anybody else in the participant room. I think we're okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing. And thank you, Shelley. I really needed you to talk about that. Okay. And just to orient you in this image, here's the restored organ. This is a screen element, wall element around that's restored organ with some doors that will go into spaces behind it. These are the existing doors. All right. Oh, another thing you can see pretty well in this image, which I think you can see in a future image, but it's worth pointing out, is that the two, I believe Kathy told me that you all call them flower boxes, but the two sort of cantilever balcony elements that are on the side that currently hold the pipes for the existing organ, we are proposing to take those away. So this space will be much simpler. We don't need them anymore. It opens things up quite a bit. So those will be gone. So I did want to point that out. Also in this image, you see these kind of strange lights hanging down. It's just because we didn't want to take the time to model the very ornate lights that you have in your church. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is seating. And I am not showing you this picture because this is the furniture we've selected, although I think it is a possibility and it's lovely. But I am showing it to you more because the image shows what this arrangement might start to feel like. And it also shows a lovely situation where we have furniture in the space that really works together. So you see the altar table here in the center, even though it's not the exact same design as maybe the ladderwork on the back of the chair, it's very simple and it has a nice light color to it. And same thing with this lectern. So I'm showing you this image more to kind of get your mind thinking about, okay, what is this going to feel like? You can see too in this image, the dark woodworking that's around in the rest of the church, and the kind of contrast that we start to get between the lighter wood furniture and that darker wood. And that is something that I am proposing. The church can be quite dark at times. So I think bringing in a lighter wood element, it still has the warmth of wood, but it isn't as dark, and it does contrast with the rest of the darker wood in the space. Oh my goodness, I have gone down so many rabbit holes of church furniture. So I am presenting to you a sort of very culled down sampling of what is actually out there. And if any of you get excited to start looking at this, what you're going to find is that a lot of things look like really bad old 1950s elementary school furniture. And so what I have tried to do is to find furniture that is durable, comfortable, made specifically for churches and the wear and tear that you have and the special needs that you have, but also doesn't feel clunky and dated. So there are basically two options, and there's quite a different price point on them. So one option is that we spend the money, assuming the budget allows it, to have a nice wood chair like what we saw in that previous image. In fact, these are those chairs. Let's see, Katie is in the waiting room, so give me 1 second. I let them in.
Becky had suggested you make she or Shelley co-host so that they can
Oh,
let
that's
people in.
such a good idea. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Unless that's more work.
I think I can just make Shelley the host. Is that okay, Shelley, or would you rather I give it to Becky? I can't see you.
Sorry. Yes, that's fine.
Okay. I'm gonna make you the host then. Yes, we are gonna make Shelley the host, and I can stay participant. Lovely. All right. So back to my screen share. We still see my screen okay? Hopefully. Somebody unmute if you're not. Okay, so on the top here, we're seeing this very nice, sturdy, but still elegant wood furniture. All of the chairs that I'm realizing I am showing you have a cushioned seat and a wooden back, as opposed to a fully cushioned or fully wooden seat. So this isn't a final decision. It's just maybe where my brain thought might be nice. But if you all come back and say, no, 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 we don't want to be comfortable on our chairs, don't give us any cushions, no problem. One thing that I want to note is that we are going to be selecting furniture that can have both an arm version as well as an armless version. It is easier for some people to use the arms to stand up out of those chairs. So there will be most likely a combination of those. The armless versions are nice because you can actually hook them together, so that they feel a little bit more pew-like. And you can see that here and here in these two different versions. For all of these wooden versions, they come with various features and elements. For example, they come with some way to either store or set your hymnals and other printed literature that you might have, Bibles, etc. And they also can come as an option with a kneeler. And this is an element you're probably familiar with in pews. It's very similar to what I believe you all have in the pew now, where you fold it down. It just is on the back of each chair and it has padding. Okay. Some of these chairs have an option to do something a little bit more detailed in the back. So for example, this chair, you can either do these details or come up with your own custom detail. And These chairs, I would say, for this quality of chair is really going to range from like about $500 a chair up to like $800, $900 a chair, depending on what we're selecting. On the other end of the cost spectrum are these chairs down here. So these are much less expensive, coming in at around $75 a chair, up to about 100. All of the chairs that we're showing you can be stacked, and that is a requirement because we do want to be able to make this space flexible and move the chairs out of the way. So the chairs down here have, they're built for this use, so they're also very durable. They're metal on the bottom. They have a cushion both on the front and the back, or of course you can get them without them if you prefer. They come with arms or not. And they do come with some of the features. I have not yet been able to find an inexpensive metal cushion chair that has a kneeler. So they do, however, have various ways of storing your Bible and hymnal and other things. In this case, it's a rack down below. The solution that I've found for kneeling, if we go this much less expensive route, is to have individual cushions that would either sit under this chair or in this storage area that you would pull out to kneel on. Okay. So this is definitely a place where we're looking for your input, your concerns, your thoughts. So we can open that up for discussion later. That's something to look at. And we can come back at any of these slides at any point. Okay. Why on earth am I showing you dimensions of a wheelchair? Well, I'm showing it to you because as we start to think about making this building accessible to everyone, and we really mean everyone doing anything, when you start to think about the possibility that someone in a wheelchair might need to speak or want to be participant in the baptism, perhaps you someday have a priest who has some mobility impairments and is in a wheelchair. We want the furniture that we're selecting to accommodate that. And unfortunately, most of the off the shelf, all of the off the shelf furniture that you can buy on the various websites isn't made for folks in a wheelchair. And so what I mean is, as you can see here, typical eye height of a person sitting in a wheelchair is 43 to 51 inches. The typical top of the lectern or pulpit is north of 40 inches. So often 42 to 44. So what that means is that if you're sitting down in a wheelchair, this line right here is where that top of that pulpit is going to be, and no one can see you. In the same way, if we think about the font, for example, and you're thinking about, okay, I'd like to put a child into this font, you want it at a comfortable height that someone in a wheelchair could hold a child on their lap, hold them over the font, immerse them in the font if that's what you choose to do. And so really we want the top of that font to be probably no higher than this 30 inches in order for a person to be able to comfortably do that. The table that you might come up to get communion really wants to be probably 34 inches. That's what we typically try to make the tables for folks in a wheelchair who want to dine at them. And so, and often the altar tables are 36 or above. Okay. So these are some things I'm thinking about. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the next slide, I'm going to start to show you some different elements, and these are hand drawn. So they're still looking pretty simple. And that's partly because we really need your input on them. So I'm going to show you two different concepts that we are exploring. One, as you can see, both of these are being proposed with this lighter wood, with the idea that the wood would be selected to match the chairs. If you all feel strongly that that should be some other color, we can talk about that. I could actually see white being lovely in the space as well. But again, this is all kind of up for discussion. But the first concept was, let's just keep it really simple. So not a ton of ornament, very kind of Scandinavian modern. Let the rest of the beautiful building and the historic building sing. We don't need to go crazy with this. We'll keep it simple, keep it more cost effective. So we're taking this same kind of very minimalist cross form that we are using in the center to decorate these elements. So this would be our lectern or pulpit. It is a rounded shape. You can kind of see it here from the side. And the trick with this is the top of this would be no higher than 36 inches. And then this element that is basically kind of a glorified music stand would have the ability to move up and down. So that if someone's standing and they need it taller, they can move it up. If someone's sitting and they want it lower, they can move it down, and their face would still be well above this area or the top of this element. So then likewise, you see very simple, and in this case, round altar table. And again, I have chosen to use 3 legs, significance of the number 3 in Christianity was part of the reason for that, but very, very simple with the simple cross element on them. And then finally, the font. Again, this would be probably 27-ish inches tall, again, with the 3 legs and the bowl. And obviously, the bowl would be something other than wood on the inside. Okay. Right, next. So one of the things that we've been exploring, and primarily with some of the elements that we're designing for the exterior for the ramp, is how do we take the language of this beautiful Gothic inspired church and make it fresh and new without feeling too cold and modern? And so what we've settled on is the formwork that you're starting to see in the fretwork of the windows here. So what we've been looking at is when we simplify that pattern, we kind of come up with these U shapes that then are inverted with the lines below them. And so we've used this pattern, and you don't see this on the exterior rendering, for the element that's going to end up being the guardrail on a portion of the ramp. But what occurred to me is that we can also use this element to create a kind of patterning and texture and a little bit more ornament on the elements that we're designing for the church. So again, the heights of these would be similar to the previous ones. It's just a different look, a little bit more ornament, again, made out of wood, a little bit sculpted with this kind of offset fluted pattern. Okay. So that's what I have to show you for the special elements in the furniture. Let me see what's next because I've forgotten. Haha, yes, the marble. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you all, so forgive me. Hopefully we can come back to any of these things that you have questions about. So this marble element that used to be the altar in the church and was decommissioned as the altar, but has sit back here and been a historical part of this church for a very long time. It was designed specifically to sit underneath this window. So you see the marble is working with the fretwork of the window. And then the element on the bottom sitting up quite a bit on this kind of raised dais. So what we are proposing to do is actually remove this whole element from that east chancel and instead move it over into the north chancel where you currently have your small grand piano and the children's area. And again, I may let Shelley talk a little bit about the significance of this, but this would be an offering table. So it will be modified in such a way to remove this panel on the back here and make it lower, quite a bit lower, so that it aligns down here with the lower part of this window. So if you're next time you're in the church, take a look at this window. The sill of the window is actually down where I'm showing this, and then there's a fixed wooden panel directly above it. So what we're proposing, oh, you can see that here in this image. Okay, so what we're proposing is that this marble would be modified to work in this location, and it would be the same element. Whoops, sorry about that. It would be the same element, but it would be slightly lower, obviously, and a little bit not narrower. Currently, that altar table is about 2 feet deep. And what we're hoping is to make it narrower so that there's room for your existing embroidered kneelers. And I think we're short a few because right now we have 6. I believe there's maybe 9 or 11 of the original kneelers. So we will have a few extras, but these kneelers would go around the base of this. So folks could light a candle, place an offering, and sit and have some quiet prayer and contemplation. And again, I am going to go ahead and let you speak if you'd like to, Shelley.
Sure.
And let me know if you'd prefer if I stop sharing.
Oh no, it's fine. One of the hopes for this renovated space is that there would be some kind of obvious built space for personal prayer. Right now, there is not an easy way to do that, and there's not an obvious focus to do that. So, by taking a precious part of our space, which is the marble, and transforming it into something that people can actually get to and touch and be next to and appreciate. And then we would also have like the little candle holders that have offering candles and have materials available for prayer, a couple places to sit. And possibly getting a tabernacle that would sit there. So that's where the communion elements would be during the week after they've been consecrated. And so if people wanted to do adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, that is where they would do it. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say, is that we're just trying to bring it down to a human level so that there is actually like a place to pray. And if, if we do healing prayer, it's like, oh, here's the obvious place where that would happen. And make that like a little sweet room in the big room.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so if we remove this, when we remove this, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what's going to happen. For now, in the East Chancel, we are going to simply restore the wall behind this. We are going to connect the wainscoting along the back here. And we are going to have a slightly raised window with a lovely white wall that I will show you in one of the next couple slides. It's going to be beautifully illuminated. But the grand vision, the long-term vision, is that you will work together as a congregation to come to an agreement of this being some lovely celebratory mural composition, if that's what you all decide. But to do something that is really unique and beautiful at this end. But we didn't feel that this was the appropriate time to present something like that. And that might be something that you work towards later. So think of this as your canvas that you can dream about in the future of what lovely thing you might like to see down here at this end. Or maybe you decide, no, we really like the simplicity and the brightness of this white wall. And that is totally fine too. Okay, and I'm going to just move forward. All right, so next, I'm sure this is what you've all been dying to see, the bathroom. So There's going to be a little bit of storage space. This is the area, this tiny little lines right here, the large stair that currently has the ADA, I'm thinking, wanting to call it a trolley, but the lift that goes down the stair on the side there. Um, so that's right here. If you went down, it would be Wilson Hall. So just to orient yourself. So this is currently kind of your choir robing area and mainly storage. So we'll have several storage areas. This will be a more typical closet where larger elements can be stored in. And then we'll have a cabinet, full height cabinet where smaller elements can be stored in. And then this is our tiny little ADA bathroom. Excuse me. So this bathroom will have a wall-to-wall countertop that will be open underneath, so someone in a wheelchair can come in. Excuse me. You have to forgive me. I'm recovering from a cold. With a recessed sink, and again, I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And a toilet. Pretty simple. So at this time, what's been selected so far, but definitely we want your feedback, is using this same tile element that we find in the narthex and to bring in something kind of special in this tiny little space. So we would have this lovely ornate tile on the floor. Our countertop would be made of this marble material with a recessed white sink, like is shown in this image here. What you're seeing here on the sides is, again, the wainscoting, very similar to what you see out in the main part of the church. What we're proposing right now is that this would be painted. It's a little bit less expensive to do it that way, and we think it can look really nice with the tile. If you all feel strongly that you don't want it to be gray, this is your time to let us know. If you feel strongly you want it to be wood, this is your time to let us know. I know if Shelly gets her way, it's probably going to be some form of teal. So you should let us know how you feel about that as well. We're proposing an oval mirror and then 2 wall sconces, which actually won't look like this, but will look like this. And this is the faucet that's being proposed, and it is a hands-free sensor faucet. So you would put your hands under it. One of the things with those faucets, a lot of you have probably run into problems where they just stop working. That's partly because they are often installed as a battery operated faucet. And in this case, these would be hardwired, so the batteries would not run out. Okay. The counter space would be adequate to maybe put flowers or have soap or some towels and that kind of thing. So it would be a lovely little powder room bathroom. Okay. All right. Next, lighting in the church. So we know that the church is dark. We also know that these pendant lights, although I brashly thought that we should replace them with something lighter and brighter, that's quite an expensive prospect. And we know that they're pretty cool. They're decorative and probably very well loved by the church, but they don't give off a ton of light. What we can do with them, we've had a lighting consultant come out, and she has proposed that we up lamp these so the light fixtures can hold a much brighter bulb. They're capable of supporting a much brighter bulb than what we currently have in there, that could then be dimmed for times when you don't want as much light. So Kathy, at the end, you can let us know if you've had a chance to test that bulb out yet. But Kathy was going to try to do a test just to see what we're getting. The other thing that we are proposing, excuse me, everyone, is to install a linear light element along these lower walls. I unfortunately have no water. It's so smart of me. But those, let's see if I can make it. I might have to stop sharing and run to get water.
That's fine. You can we can sit here for a minute. We just had a lot of information. You go get your water.
Thank you.
Can I just take a moment to share my discussion with the lighting designer then, since we're in that moment? So we actually did get the wrong bulbs when we switched over to LEDs, and we can have much brighter lighting in the current fixtures. The lighting designer has given me some bulbs to purchase, and I haven't had time yet to put in a stupid Amazon order. But my intention is to get that done, rebulb like 2 of the fixtures at the front. It should be significantly lighter. We can all move like moths to the front of the church once we can see, but it will give us an opportunity to see what that's like and to correct our error. It's not dark just because of the new building. But the new building has made it obvious that we put the wrong bulbs in when we switched over. Anyway, back to Kate.
Thank you. Sorry for coughing in your ears. I should have muted. Terrible thing, a cold. All right. Let me go ahead and share again. Thanks for updating everyone, Kathy. So there will be these linear elements, as I was saying, that are light fixtures. So there are long linear light fixtures that will be hidden behind a piece of molding. So you won't actually see the fixture itself. Instead, it would wash down the wall and the wall would just be much brighter. So I have done my best to show you how that is going to feel. So simply stated, we would wash these walls with light. They would be brighter. So without replacing and putting more lights in the space is going to start to feel brighter, as you can see between these two. The other thing that we'll be doing is using new spotlights that will both, as I said previously, be centered on the altar at the center of the church, as well as towards these end walls here. Okay, so one of the things that our lighting designer suggested as probably the #1 way that we could make this church feel lighter and brighter is going to be a bit of a shock to you all. And that is to paint the ceiling. And I know that maybe some of you think this is absolute sacrilege, and we completely understand that. So we thought we would present it, but as you can see, the church feels much lighter, much brighter. So what's being proposed in this image, if we go back and forward, is that the main structural trusses would stay wood, and that the rest of the ceiling of the church, including the substructure, would be painted. And there you can see a comparison of them side by side. So I know this is a big suggestion, part of the reason we're having this meeting. And all of our gut was, wow, this is really cool, but it might be too much. So we want to hear all of your opinions. But before we get there, I'm going to show you a few more things. Some 3D views, which some of you may have seen, of the inside of the church with the new arrangement. Here you'll see that offering table. On this side, you see the new organ. And then finally, the exterior with our new ramp element coming up in this guardrail that is also inspired by the windows. Okay. All right. I think that's the end of our presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm actually going to turn my mic and my camera off for a minute and let you all have whatever conversation you want.
Thank you so much. I want to let you know that we are designing a survey. So even if you talk here tonight, we want you to fill out the survey so we have documented writing. And I've been taking notes about what that survey is going to contain. Kate is going to put it together. Kate, our admin, is going to put it together tomorrow, and it will be live through Monday. There will also be paper versions of that survey in the back of the church on Sunday if you want to pick up and fill out a paper version. But you are also free here to make any comments that you would like.
I have a question, if I may. The adjustments that are being made for a wheelchair user, or for a person using a wheelchair, are those taking into account both someone in a motorized wheelchair and a non-motorized wheelchair? Because I remember when Nancy Gantz's funeral was done, her niece couldn't be in the nave because there was no way to get her motorized wheelchair up into the nave. And I'm wondering about the measurements. And I have no idea, are they similar? Are they totally different for a motorized versus non-motorized? Is this something that we've looked at? Is it something we need to go back and look at real quick?
I think that's a great question. And I don't know the answer. So I am basing all of our assumptions on what the US Accessibility Code says, but you're absolutely right. So we can take a look. I will tell you this, that at least for the lectern, the intention is that that would be adjustable so that that person can use
I
it.
have been put on wheelchairs.
Perfect. I'm so glad. I'm gonna let you speak.
So motorized wheelchairs are actually higher than non-motorized wheelchairs, and they come in a variety of sizes.
Hmm.
And often they can move up and down, but motorized wheelchairs, which most of the students that I have in wheelchairs have motorized wheelchairs. But yeah, they can get much higher than the non-motorized. Just,
Okay.
that's all I know.
So thinking about the restroom that will be on the same floor as the nave, is there going to be room in there for someone in a motorized wheelchair to turn 360 degrees around? Between getting in, using the facilities, washing their hands, getting out the door again. That's a lot of renegotiating space.
That's a
And
great question.
maybe it's just that the picture we saw looks so very narrow.
Yeah, it looked narrow because of the angle of the camera that was the model used to show it. The bathroom has been designed to the universal accessibility standards, which I would assume that all wheelchair manufacturers would know and make sure that their wheelchairs met that, because if everybody's designing it to that and then your wheelchair doesn't work, that's a problem. But I think it's absolutely worth looking into, so we can do a little bit of research and learn more about that. But thank you for asking the question. Never
I
heard
And
believe it's not just height, but also the length
Mhm.
of the wheelchair. I believe the motorized ones are significantly longer.
Okay,
And that would be a dimension.
that's great. That's good to know.
You've basically designed it to the 5-foot turning radius, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about weight? Motorized wheelchairs are much heavier, aren't they?
They are, but we had a structural engineer look at the weight of the pipe organ, and there were no modifications needed to the flooring to support that pipe organ. So I don't think we have any problem inside the church in supporting that. And then the ramp is going to be made out of concrete, so
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
And the piano hasn't fallen through yet, so.
Exactly.
knock on wood.
Okay.
Anyone else? Feel free to raise your hand if that's easier, or you can just jump in. Go ahead,
I had
Kathy.
some random questions and thoughts.
Okay.
Have we given any thought to putting an automatic opener on the main door to the church?
I think it's a great idea. I would love to see that happen. We can add it as an alternate for pricing and kind of see how that comes in.
And is
Because
the
that,
key card system still anywhere in the plans?
yes, it is.
Okay. On which doors?
We should go through that with you, Kathy, and review
Okay.
it just to make sure we've got it right.
Um,
We can send you the door schedule and you can look at it and help us make
and
sure
I
we get
just
it right.
looking at all the new lecterns and what have you, we have all these little panels of color and things that we put up for seasons. I don't know the names of any of it, but the Altar Guild type people and the people who have made many of these things do. And I just wonder if how we'll incorporate things like that and candles and flowers in the new space. And this isn't something to solve at the design level perhaps, but it is an opportunity, a positive opportunity for the Altar Guild and other people to think about how those things will get incorporated in the new space.
Mhm.
And then I have a couple of other notes for you, Kate, that you should be sure you know, but I'll email
Yeah, I know you will, and it will be wonderful.
them. You know I will.
And then Linda, I think you had a question, and then I see,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. So just another observation that I had. While it might be great to have the children near a bathroom, it might be something to consider about having them near more the mothers with the nursing area. I realize we're used to looking towards the front of the church with the windows and then the children underneath, or should the children be closer to their parents where they can work with them?
The idea is that the parents would be back there. They're not alone. The children are not alone back there.
So I understood the chairs in the back were for like people that wanted to nurse or converse or whatever. So that's where I made that connection.
Yeah, so like if somebody has a baby and a toddler, like a
Yeah.
baby and a 5-year-old, which end of the church do you pick?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're the furthest away that you can get from each other. um, we did go round and round and round about whether or not there should be a kids area. If so, what is the most natural place for it? That is not settled. It's
Oh,
not,
sure.
it's not, and is a thing that we really welcome feedback on. It was, part of it was in this space, it's going to be counterintuitive to go to the chairs where the chancel is now, because they're the furthest away from the door, right? And so part of it is like making that a destination to make sure people are in it and activity is in it. And so maybe we do that and add the rocking chairs there, because otherwise then you get people sitting in the 3 closest spaces staring at a bunch of empty chairs, or else it's just a requirement of vestry service that they go sit in those chairs every Sunday, to make it feel like part of the church. But it's not that's not set in stone in any way. That's in all these ideas that we're throwing around.
Another suggestion could be, because I don't see anything designated necessarily for the acolytes, for the clergy to sit if we get a choir back.
We've had feedback about where the choir would go in this. We know placements for the choir. The liturgical ministers would sit in chairs with everyone else. There's not, I mean, part of what we're doing here is not making elite space for the fanciest people. There are people who are marked by clothing for their role in the liturgy, but are on the same flat level as everyone else and sitting in the same chairs.
Mhm.
Gail, I saw your hand up, I think.
It's Mary. Yeah.
Oh, it's Mary. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna have to leave in a second. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of the painted ceiling. I think that would be pretty exciting, actually. And I wanted to get that across.
Thanks, Mary. I'm glad to hear that you liked it.
And thanks for your time. And I'm sorry I have to scoot.
No, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye. Okay, I saw Simone. I think I saw Gail, and then I just saw Carlotta. So Gail, why don't you? No, not Carlotta. Okay, go ahead, Gail.
Well,
If you have a question.
this may be too vague, but looking at the patterned tiles, which are lovely, and thinking about the organ, which has its own distinctive 19th century pattern, and then Swedish type simple furniture, my mind is having a hard time coordinating all that. It seems like a simple floor would allow you to more easily mentally negotiate among the elements.
I hear you. I should have stated that that floor is really only in the entry and the bathroom. The rest of the floor is going to be wood floor. But you bring up a good point. I think they're far enough away from each other, and that pattern does come from a similar era as when this church was originally built, which was part of the reason that we selected it. But you do bring up a good point. However, I will say that they're never going to be adjacent to each other visually. So I'm not sure. But, and your question about the furniture is a good one. I think in my mind, if we start to get really ornate furniture, I think it in some way becomes so busy. So my gut response as an architect was, let's just keep everything as simple as we can so we can let the rest of the church and the sanctuary, really the architecture, sing.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Thanks for your thoughts. Simone?
Um, the painted ceiling does look cool, but I do wonder if how necessary it would still be after switching out the lights. Like that was about all I had to say there.
Well, the good thing is you all can start switching out the lights now. Long before we decide to paint the ceiling. So you might find that it's plenty and that we don't need to go there. Or maybe don't do it now. Maybe it's something you decide to fundraise for and you really want to do it in the future. So I am glad to hear though that people like it. We all thought it was quite striking when we took it. Okay, any other comments? Yes,
I'll
Jocelyn.
just say that it was the most divisive slide among your vestry.
Yeah, I can see why.
That was it.
When we're presented this survey, are there going to be the differences in costs attached to it? For instance, the ornate tile as opposed to the gray tile.
It's a great
As
question.
we are on a
Jocelyn,
budget after all.
the square footage allotment for the budget is this tile is both tile selections are within that. And I will tell you, it's such a small square footage that we're probably talking about a difference of a few $100s.
Mhm.
The numbers for the chairs are going to be next.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
I wasn't
Yeah.
just thinking about the tiles, but everything
Yeah.
that might have a big price differential.
Correct. So yeah, that is really why I wanted to show you those different chairs. Because obviously the wooden chairs are lovely, but that's a 10 times almost price tag difference. So I want you all to really think about that and give us your feedback. As far as the rest of the church furniture, I will be honest with you, I have been shocked looking at the cost for off the shelf church furniture. It's insanely expensive. So I think that we are going to be able to find local craftsmen to make these new pieces, and we're going to be fine either way, because I cannot believe how much is charged for the furniture. I mean, I know it's nice and sturdy, but it's kind of insane. Yes, Kathy.
We have a relationship with a company called Church Partners,
Oh,
which is
cool.
where we bought the chapel chairs from. We got 26 disarmed chairs with kneelers, and they were about $220 a piece. I'll send you that to see if anything there fits yours, but we get a discount through them.
Perfect. I'm actually looking them up right now. It's just called churchpartner.com.
More Church Partners, something like that.
Okay, then you better send the link to me, because I might have found the wrong one.
Okay.
No problem. We can.
Katie, I
Yeah.
think.
Churchpartner.com.
Okay.
I do have a question about and maybe you do know this or not, Kate, but if we were to paint the ceiling, would there be sanding required before painting it? Do you know?
I don't know. And honestly, we would have to have someone take a look at it up close to see. It appears to be stained, the existing, and so what was used, and what they recommend that we put over it. I've done this before. We did end up having to sandblast the ceiling. We used cotton or walnut shells, not sand, because sand gets in every tiny little crevice. But yeah, my hope is that we would not have to do that.
Yeah, because
But obviously, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my only concern with the timing of like when we would paint it would be that it would if any sanding or anything would need to happen with the organ, we would want that prior to the organ installation for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna want to try to time this so the organ doesn't come until everything's done.
Yeah.
I saw another hand. Let me see. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Going back to the chairs for just a minute. The last several doctor's offices I've been in have the conventional desk chairs, no arms. They have matching chairs with arms. They also have now wider chairs, taller chairs for people who can't sit down and then get up as easily. Did you see anything like that, Kate, when you were looking at possibilities for chairs, or is that something that we can keep in mind when we reach out to churchpartner.com and see it's another way to make the nave more accessible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely saw varying widths. I don't recall taller, but I think it's something we can ask. But that was definitely the reason for the arms, is that it's just going to be a lot easier for someone to push themselves up.
Yeah,
the other thing that
new chapel chairs are lovely, but I can't sit in them because I can't get out of them.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and the other thing that we've been talking about that I'm aware of is even though these are movable chairs, I think we're going to want to have some that do lock into the floor. It's not going to be possible for all of them to lock into the floor, but even if it's just the ones on the end, so that you know that if you really need to push yourself up on that chair, that's the one to pick, because it won't, go anywhere. So, other questions? In those of you who don't have a camera, if you're wishing you could raise your hand, there is a way to do it. I'm just looking for what it is, just in case you want to, or you can just unmute and ask your question. It's probably the easiest way. Go ahead, Linda.
Just one other thing, and maybe it's me, but if we decide that we want to try the white ceilings, once you do it, you kind of don't go back. Personally, I like the historic dark, but I think it might be a low-cost way to visualize it by maybe just getting butcher paper to block, say, half of the ceiling or whatever, but just to see after we test the lights, if that's something that's attractive or detracting.
Mhm.
We have all those sheets from Monday, Thursday. We can just
There you have it.
tack them up.
And at
Exactly.
least one
We have, like-
person willing to climb a ladder.
A really tall ladder.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I am gonna end this meeting unless Shelley has something else to say.
No, thank you so much. Survey link will go out and live in your email tomorrow. And now that I'm the host, you want me to stop recording and then you
Yes.
will save it and get it to us.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I am stopping it.
All right. Sounds good. You're also